from the. I'm Cara. I'm the Director of Business and Workforce Development, which also includes the Church Street Marketplace.
We are recording this just so anybody who didn't have a chance to attend can view this on the website after, or you can watch it again. I'm Olivia Dries. I'm Public Works Engineer with the Department of Public Works, co-managing this project with Laura.
And under with the Department of Public Works, just helping with some of the logistics.
And then we have Evan from our design team.
And Evan Dietrich with VHB. I'm the project manager for the design part of this.
So thank you all for your time today. Just to get us started off, we have the project manager information. So if you're looking to reach out to us, we were also on the invite for today. You can email us as the best point of contact. If you're more comfortable going through some of your familiar city contacts, Cara, Will, Chapin, feel free to reach out to them. They'll connect you with us or they'll connect your questions with us. Just to highlight, sorry. On the Great Streets Main Street website, we do have updated information that went up on the website regarding the water, the sewer, some of the Main Street plans, which we also have the printout on the wall. I'm going to show you some updated images today. So this was done in January. Obviously, things are progressing. So I'll show you some of the updated, how these blocks are changing. But do know that as we get more information, we'll post it here. So for those who aren't familiar, we're talking about Main Street. The project's streetscape reconstruction extends from Union Street all the way to Battery Street. It will also include relocating the city's ravine sewer, which we're going to grab it at the back of the fire station. It currently crosses across the city to Maple Street. We're going to reroute that with this red dashed line and grab that flow and move it so that it stays inside the city's right of way. Right now it goes under buildings and properties, and really it's an 1860s piece of infrastructure. It's not really great to leave it there. So with this project, we're going to grab that and bring that down here. That'll include some construction along Lower Church Street to be able to add that new pipe. We're also going to work on a little bit of a reconfiguration on the northern end of the Church Street block. So this is one of those concepts that's been revised from images that either we've met with you guys and shown you or you've seen on the website. This is between South Champlain Street and Pine Street. And really this speaks to kind of the change in being able to site trees so that they have the proper soil volumes. Coming from feedback that we've had with property owners about benches and bike racks and other amenities and whatnot that are out in front of properties and vehicles. If we go to the next slide, this is going to be hard for you guys to see, so we have it zoomed in to speak to what you're going to see on the plan so you can read them yourselves. There is a clear sidewalk zone at the face of buildings. You can see here, this is one of those good examples. Not everything in the city of Burlington is perfect and clean and square. Main Street is a place that there are a lot of encumbrances within the existing right of way because buildings are old and our city is older. This next zone that's gray is a paver belt. It will have other amenities such as the special seating and whatnot, but I'll get to that next. The next band of color is the bike lane. This is bi-directional in each way. So downhill on the right-hand side of the road, uphill on the left-hand side of the road for me. The next part is a step-off zone. So this is a clear space for as you have your car door, as you're opening your door, you're not going to hit the bike lane. You'll have room to get out of your car. Parking is next, followed by the travelway. So then to speak to some of the amenities, what you'll see in these tan colors on plans is a special seating. There are little tiny circles, which are sometimes hard to see, which are waste and recycling. Driveways are going to blend in a lot better in the new streetscape. So this is actually a driveway into a property. And really what that's meant to read is that this space is for pedestrians, it's for bicyclists, it's not necessarily for cars. We want to make sure that the language of the street says this is the space that pedestrians are safe. And then down here, we see little white lines indicative of bike racks, and then these rectangular boxes, more of our standard bench. One block I wanted to highlight that we've been working on pretty significantly with our design consultant is the block between Church and Winooski. In the role plans, you'll see that the parking on that block is pretty limited. Amenity space is limited, but these are where the plans have progressed to. Working to add a lot more parking along the south side of the road, working to add loading on the north side of the road, improved transit facilities right at Church Street. It also includes a turn lane. So this is just to highlight where the plans are progressing. The next iteration of this will be available at the end of April. But if you do have questions about a certain area, we can certainly get you your questions answered. If we've already met with you and you want to know where things are at. So now we're going to talk about parking. In and amongst this effort, the city has undergone a pretty extensive parking study. We have studied existing occupancy during last summer, counting things every 2 hours, counting 2 weekdays, 2 weekends. We've included counts inside of the private lots that go public just during their specific hours that they are public. And so this is kind of the summation of that. And I'll show you a blow up in it in just a second so you can actually read it. Oh my God. To touch on the goals for Main Street's parking reduction. So with the ability to add in the amenity spaces, we are converting the diagonal spaces to parallel parking. That comes at a change in parking from 157 existing spaces, and this includes the truck loading and the accessible spaces and however they're categorized, but there's 157 in the corridor. And our goal is to have at least 90 in the finished condition. And so the parking study considered that 67 vehicle space reduction and how that would play out around the city. So we studied what the occupancies were in our weekday peak, which was actually from 12 to 2, and our weekend peak, which was from 6 to 8. So if we zoom in, this information goes by block face and it goes by parking structure. So just to orientate everybody, we have Main Street here. Church Street is here in the center. This blue area is the 5-minute walk from the center of Church and Main, just to get an idea how long it would take to walk 5 minutes from a parking space back to Main Street in this location. On each face of the block, you'll see different colors. Red is essentially fully occupied. The green is less occupied, and that's based on the number of spaces on the side of the road. So while this one says it only has 2 spaces available, there's only 6 spaces here total, versus somewhere over here that has 13 spaces and only has 2 available. So that's the information that's there. This parking study is being posted on our website. So that's going to be the next piece of new information that everybody can review. And that's kind of the summation of the parking. You can see that the private structures have been added into this mix because this is the blow up of the weekend peak where that parking is available.
You know, the weekday one real quick.
Not zoomed in. And I'm recording this, so I'm not going to take that question yet, but we'll go back to it, JP. So coming out of the recommendations of the draft study, it is still draft right now. We'll get into the schedule of where that finalizes. So if you have a chance to review it and want to provide us comments, it is open for comment right now. First recommendation is around maximizing the use of the existing parking. This comes with something called curbside management. This is looking at putting a time limit on spaces in and around Main Street where there's not one currently, looking at how the regulations are laid out. There's spaces out there right now. There's one that's dedicated to a taxi cab 24/7, 7 days a week. It's not the best use of the space. So that's where the regulations come in, is looking at putting in dual use zones, seeing how things really are need to be used based on today's use of Main Street. The study also recommends looking at parking rates. There are a lot of different meter types up and down Main Street, from the brown meters where you pay $4 for the day to the gray meter tops where it's $1.50 an hour, but you can park there all day long as you're paying. The other work would be connecting with our private parking partners to maximize use of their lots. There's definitely challenges with signage. This is not our city's example, but you can see how clean and clear this image is. Between the city's effort and the efforts in the private lots, the parking language around the city is just confusing. So working to better clean up that system, but that requires us to also work with our private partners. So that's the second bullet as well, about the signage system. The city's transportation demand management. And so this is working with our planning office, who has a study ongoing right now about how to get people into town or around town by not using a single occupancy vehicle. So that's another strategy that we are actively working on, as well as the enforcement. And so we've already met with our parking services staff. We've talked about how often they can actually enforce Main Street, if we went to a time limit, if we went to, speaking of the regulations, loading zones, that would be 30-minute loading zones. They wouldn't be truck specific anymore. They wouldn't be vehicle specific. Anybody could park there for pickup, drop off, running in to grab a to-go container for up to 30 minutes for free. And so it's making sure that our enforcement staff can be timely enough to be monitoring those spaces. And they felt pretty comfortable with that. They really liked the idea of transitioning something so that it was easier and expected for the staff to be able to know when to either ticket someone or tow somebody or let them do. So questions. We sent out last night. We also have printed today some frequently asked questions, but here's some of the ones that I thought we should go over today. And it's based on what everybody's asked in our meeting so far. So where will the contractor start? We don't yet know this. We can take our best guess based on our existing construction practices. They like to start with the deepest utilities first. That's going to be the ravine sewer, the water main replacement, the sewer main replacement along the corridor. Whether they start at the west end or the east end, we won't know that until we actually have them under contract. And that'll be in the September timeframe. Will I have to close my business at any time? You should not. Under expected conditions, you should not have to close your business. Inside of the contractor's requirements is to maintain access to your business, to your tenants, to whoever and whatever door your hours are open. That doesn't mean that we won't do work immediately in front of your business off hours. Or if you go, hey, you know what? I'd like to take a vacation. I was going to close this week. That's maybe a good opportunity. And that's where this is an active conversation. We want to understand those opportunities, but under no known circumstance should your business not have access. How will people get into my business? So again, this comes back to, we still may be doing something immediately in front of your business, but temporary access, wood forming, stairs, ramps will be constructed to be able to bridge over something that might look like a barrier. Something's not working until we do that. There'll be on-site representation that will be able to facilitate how that conversation goes, and make adjustments. Again, this is an active conversation. We did it on St. Paul Street where we were doing underground utility trenching, and the contractor literally built a bridge from one side of St. Paul Street across this trench to the other so that pedestrians could cross the street. Where will my employees, customers, and clients park? This is probably one of the most challenging parts of this entire construction. We've heard from a lot of businesses the desire to maintain two-way traffic flow on Main Street. There's only going to be so much space during construction because of the deeper utility excavations and the trenching. We're going to maintain cars to be able to go two-way through this corridor. It's going to come at the loss of the on-street parking in that immediate zone. If you feel differently, we would love to hear about that. But generally, that's what we've been hearing to date. So where will the employees and customers park? We are working on some densification of some side street parking. South Champlain Street, we're looking to change that to being one-way northbound and adding parking on the west side, removing the buses and densifying that area. We're looking at some other strategies like that throughout the corridor. We're also working, and Shapen and Kara can speak to it, with our private parking partners to see if there's other opportunities during the day in some of those lots that are not currently open. The last thing I'll speak to is the water sewer work. So the funding for this project has a unique opportunity that most city funded projects don't have. We're able to replace the water main, the water laterals that go into people's properties, the sewer main, and the sewer laterals. And why is that important? Usually, and under our ordinance, the water main, the water lateral, so where the utility connects from our main off to a parcel, is a 50-50 share for a portion of it, where it's the business or the property owner's cost, and then it's partially shared by the city, and then there's even a part that is 100% on the property owner. Similarly with the sewer, from the main to the building face is 100% on the property owner. But we're going to do that for you. We're gonna do that at our cost and get as close as we can to your building with that replacement. With any utilities that are not plastic, so copper, metal, clay, whatever it was constructed of, hopefully we don't find any timber ones. But certainly there's old water timber mains under the street, we will replace that. What does the outage look like? We'll run temporary water up the corridor. There will be 2 to 4 periods of time, most likely, where we'll need to do a water shut. Where you'll receive notification 2 to 3 weeks in advance, and then you'll get a hard notice 48 hours before we need to shut off your water. One of the things we are collecting during our meetings with everybody is your hours. And why that's important is we're trying to average, as we understand these water shutoffs throughout the corridor. Is it better to do it from 9 to 10 in the morning or 9 to 11 in the morning? Or is it better to do this from 5 to 7 at night? Some people are gonna feel very differently about this answer, but as long as we can understand kind of how that impacts the entire corridor, we'll be able to try to program that during the most reasonable time possible. So that's the top 5, what I thought for construction answers. I thought of one in my head while we were talking, and that is the construction hours. So contractor hours would be 7 AM to 9 PM. Generally not any overnight work, except for something that is exceptional. Usually that comes as the water mains. We find often water main connections and intersections sometimes have to be done at night. This is limited, again, would come with pretty significant notice. That nighttime work would be like 9 PM to 6 AM. And from the feedback that we've heard so far, there seems to be a strong preference to not have work happen on Saturdays or Sundays. We'll see how that plays out as we're bidding, but that is certainly one of the goals that we'll express to the contractor during our bidding cycle. So to speak to the schedule, as we're here at the end of March, we are still gonna have business owner meetings. We're still actively scheduling these. We're also looking to speak to any property owners throughout the corridor. So if you're a property owner in here and we've not reached out to you, it'd be really great to connect. Or if you want to write down your information on our contact sheet. If we haven't reached you, there's a really good chance we have bad information on how to get a hold of you and would love to connect. So where we go from here is in April, we are presenting the parking regulations for the streets to the DPW Commission. This is both the temporary during construction, which was like the South Champlain Street change, as well as the permanent on street. So where we're gonna locate vehicle loading spaces, where we're gonna locate accessible spaces, where we're gonna locate regular metered spaces. This will all be publicly available. The meeting in April is informational. We are presenting this information to them. That is the start of the public comment period. So if you have comments on the parking layout on Main Street, in and around your business, your property, the preference is to hear it in April. If you're not able to make the meeting, we do take it all electronically. Where we're gonna go with this is the May is kind of bracketed. That's where we're gonna seek to effectuate the change. That's where we're gonna ask them to actually start acting on these changes and bringing them into something that's adhered to. If you can't make it till the May meeting, that's also fine. June, we are going to advertise the project to contractors. The advantage to this is we don't necessarily have to take the lowest bid with our funding source. We're gonna ask them to propose what their traffic plan is when they submit their bid and their schedule and their means and methods, so that we can select someone that's going to propose to complete the project in a way that works best for the entire community. Not just, this is the low bid, I'm gonna get in, get it done, and not think about anybody else. Award of that, targeting in August to the city council. This would be another opportunity for public comment. Obviously, the city council loves to hear feedback on things. So that is another opportunity for you to speak to somebody that's not in this room. What we plan to do is now, once we have the contractor selected, we'll come back to the businesses. Most likely in smaller meetings. This will be focused on what's gonna happen during construction. This will be focused on knowing where the contractor plans to start. And so we've heard from folks, maybe like 2 blocks at a time, to be able to focus on the 2 blocks that are gonna be starting under construction versus 2 blocks on the other end of the corridor that will feel an impact in a totally different way. And we'll meet with you guys all again 6 months from then when they maybe move locations. Earliest start of construction based on everything and a contractor ramping up looks like November. So start of November. If you have encumbrances out on the street for street seating and whatnot, those usually run through the end of October. You're good for this year. I would encourage you to apply, do your business as normal. Those can run for the entire full season. And our excavation inspector is aware of that. So what does our outreach look like coming from here forward? We are issuing a contract for our on-site representation, which is like a construction inspector, as well as an outreach consultant. And what they're gonna do is they will post weekly construction updates. They will interface with businesses, property owners, residents, whoever is trying to interact with Main Street and has a question, concern, or needs something that we haven't thought of. Their role will be helping to create traffic and pedestrian access maps when site conditions might be a little bit confusing. These materials are something that we'll push out, but also make available to you so that you can bring this to your clients. Maps of available parking and how to find that for people who've not sought out, their favorite diagonal space on Main Street and now need to find someplace else to park. We will continue to make use of VT Alert for anything significant that changes that's different from a weekly update. We're also including our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, so that maybe we can make this fun. We've talked with some folks about being able to retweet potentially some of ours so that your clients have an idea how to find the information for Main Street. And we'll also continue to use Front Porch Forum, which has been a great way to reach out to the broader residents in Burlington and provide them with information about what's happening. Lastly, and this speaks a lot to the water sewer work, as well as if something changes dramatically and we want to get a hold of people. So door hangers, which is essentially something that we try to hang on a door. In the business community, it looks more like a handout. But emails, calls, and texts. And so that's where it's important for us to have your contact information. The city is somehow exceptionally bad at normally keeping contact information. It's not with your property record card unless you've checked a box. So that's why we need it now. What it'll be used for is really just that emergency, being like the water main that we thought was holding underneath in front of your building is not holding so well. We want to get in touch with you to tell you what that means. So that's why that would be used. It's not to broadcast text to people, be like, hey, check out these Main Street updates. It's really just during construction, we need a way to try to get a hold of you so that we can inform you and figure out a solution. And I'm going to hand it over to Chapin and Kara to talk a little bit about kind of the extra level of support that we're working on for Main Street.
In addition to the resident engineer doing the outreach on the construction stages and impacts and mitigations, Kara and I are coordinating on funding a separate promotional effort, and we will make this happen, and it will be funded with money outside of the project, and we are still working on the exact frame. Right, I think that.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, my office runs not only the Church Street Marketplace social media, but also the brand Love Burlington. And we are already brainstorming ideas of how to support you guys. My office is here for business support for when the city needs to undergo a project that will be disruptive to your businesses. We are definitely here to help. As Chapin said, we are finding other funding sources to increase our marketing budget. So we will absolutely be even having things like on-street signage that is engaging, social media that is also engaging and that we will be pumping out. We also have email lists of not just businesses, but members of the community that we market and promote to. We have 30,000 of those. Through all our channels, we have over 40,000 people who are following us. And so we're really able to even give individual businesses shout outs of support. So we are working on a larger marketing plan that will start when construction starts.
So that brings us to the end of what I wanted to share with everybody to try to get us all up onto the same page. Again, the greatstreetsbtv.com website and our contact information. You can close the recording.